So here we are. We're not live. Craig Martelle coming to you live from the subarctic. A ways out today, we have A.R. Shaw, Annette Shaw, and we're going to talk about Post Apoc. But first, where are you coming to us from?
Bainbridge Island, Washington.
What about the lockdown? We were talking about that before we went live, but let the guests know. What's that look like for you?
For us, I live on an island that's just a short ferry ride to Seattle. So it's mostly a commuter's island. So people typically would take the ferry over every day. So we were kind of concerned when this started to happen, but and for me it was really surreal because my series is based on this scenario here. Starting here. That was really strange. But it's mostly a retired community, and I think we've been very respectful of keeping our retirees healthy. And it's starting to open up now, but we're all still being it's a big walking island. People walk everywhere, but we've all clearly, are maintaining distance, especially keeping the elderly people safe.
You said there was only 12 cases. Yeah, 12 cases on the island. Has anybody died?
No one on this island. No one's died. No.
Yeah. And that's the same up here in Fairbanks. We've had 80 some cases. 10 were hospitalized, I believe, and only 2 passed away up here. Mm-hmm. So it's pretty much almost completely open and back to business as usual. So Fairbanks and Alaska starting, I saw the note today. What's today? Wednesday. Today is Wednesday. I forgot to start off the show. Wednesday, just in case people don't know, because people have lost track of time.
The 20th, yeah.
And Alaska, I think Friday is going to open up in entirety. There's no mandatory anything, and they're just guidelines at this point. So it's because they had a 14-day quarantine if you came into the state from the outside. Outside is anywhere not Alaska, and we don't have that anymore. So my life has changed in that I can't just run downtown like I used to, because I would always take a break and run down. I love grocery shopping. I know it's really weird. I'm a dude, and I like grocery shopping. So I don't really do that anymore, but I'll get back into it slowly, and I'll wear my mask. I don't care about that. I'm still free to go around. And this is Alaska. I can pack my hardware if I want, because my driver's license is my concealed carry permit, because this is Alaska.
Yay. Hair salons have not opened up yet, as you can tell. I actually trimmed my bangs. Couldn't take it anymore. I will say that my dad in Texas, he went and got his hair cut yesterday. And I was, please wear a mask. But he couldn't take it anymore. He was like, nope, gotta go get the hair done. Old military guy.
We have a clippers. My wife took care of it in our garage. My wife has a PhD, and there she is cutting my hair with the clippers, trying to blend it in. Yeah. But the stuff on the sides, it was no problem. It was just whipping. But the stuff on the top is like corn silk fine. So it kept fighting her, and then she just left it. And so I've been incrementally cutting them with a scissors if I get some flyaways. I do not do the comb over like my brother did for 20 years. But we're here to talk Post Apoc, and I think what we've determined is the most important thing in Post Apoc is, one, you have internet so you can stream Netflix, and two, you Jones for a hair salon to get your hair done. But what these things are indicative of is people want to go back to the way it was. But that's Post Apoc writers.
Yeah.
We try to imagine a world where you don't get to go back. So what got you into Post Apoc as an author?
Some people ask me this. I don't know. I got to say, I've always been intrigued by the stories of humanity in the worst of times, right? We tend to survive things that makes no sense whatsoever. I really enjoy watching, this is terrible, I guess, but I really enjoy watching the World War II films, and just seeing how people made it through starvation or world events. And so I had this story in the back of my mind. I'm a huge reader, obviously. So Lucifer's Hammer was always a favorite Alas, Babylon, all those old, wonderful, that you can read them today and they apply today.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Stand, of course, that's always been a huge one, but I've always loved those. And I always kind of had in the back of my mind, just a guy, a regular guy, not a super special forces dude, nothing like that. He's a math professor from Seattle, not super political, but certainly not super conservative or not super liberal, just, a regular guy. And I just thought, what would happen if this guy had to really face massive tragedy in his family, and how would he survive? And then how would you, as a mother, I'm a mom, my kids are grown, so they don't like me to, they're young adults now. But one just turned 26. How does that happen?
My babies, you still call them my babies in public. My parents do that. I'm 57, and my parents will still introduce me. Oh, this is my baby. Yeah. I've been retired from the Marine Corps for 19 years.
Air Force. I was Air Force.
There you go.
She turns 22 later this month. I'm 50. So
nice. Nice. And living in a retiree community.
Right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm lucky to do that. So just whenever I started Graham's Resolution in 2013 and titled it The China Pandemic, one of the hardest things, just as a mom, getting back to that, there was this, everyone's dying. Like I didn't know what I was really doing at the time, but I just really annihilated society with a weaponized bird flu. And this mother, Hanak, what would you do? What would you really do if you had a 5-year-old child who wasn't dying, but you knew you were dying and your entire family already died? What would you do with this child? Very few people, just like even today, they have some odd immunity. And I studied all of that. I don't know. I could only think of 2 scenarios. You hand him off to someone, a 5-year-old, you hand him off to someone who can care for him and hope to God that one of the survivors would do the right thing by him and take care of this child, or you would take his life. And I couldn't imagine either. But to me, it was gut wrenching. So that's what she did.
And it begs. I think Post Apoc writers have one thing in common: is we ask the what if. We ask the what if, and we look at, okay, what if you didn't have access to this? What if this all happened? What if you broke your leg and you had to survive? And then you put yourself into that position, and now you work through it, because we all like to win. And yes, when 99% of the Earth's population gets killed, but hey, we're in for the 1%. We're cheering for the person who's going to stand on the top of the podium. And sounds like my first book I wrote, End Times Alaska. It wasn't titled that at the time. The initial title was It's Not Enough to Just Exist, because it was about surviving after the fall. Well, don't use that title, because when I started my marketing campaigns, I started them broad. Girls 13 to 17, 0 purchases. It's not enough. So if you have a young adult self-help book for young girls, for teenage women, call it It's Not Enough to Just Exist. You've got a great market there. They click on it. They don't buy it if it's post-apoc survivalist. So, and this is, and my main character in that one was broken, a retiree from the Marine Corps. Okay, write what you know, right? And but bad lungs. I lost 50% of my lungs in the Marine Corps, so I have a hard time breathing. And so my character, now he's in this, and eventually over the series he runs out of meds. And what does he do? How does he manage that? And something as simple as, geez, I don't have my asthma inhaler. Your quality of life, because I've gone without. I accidentally traveled once without one, and 7 days into, I was okay for a few days after not taking it, but then after that, I was almost completely incapacitated. And how do you survive? Because I'm in Alaska, and my survival was set here. So if you wait, a moose will eventually come to you, and they're really big, and they'll feed you for a year. They'll feed a family for a year plus one moose. So you're okay in that regard, but just doing stuff. It snows, it's really cold. How do you get out of the house? So how do you, what if? And all of my post-apoc books are a series of what ifs. So you've written pandemic, so a virus associated. Mm-hmm. Other post-apoc genres, subgenres. Neither of us do zombie post-apoc, but that is a big subgenre. What are some other subgenres that you're looking at?
I've always felt that a survivalist world without zombies is scary enough. So I never thought that, I think it can just be, it's bad enough without zombies. Gosh. I've also done a couple of different catalysts. I guess that's what I call them. I was a radio operator in the Air Force, and I have studied like the radio propagation, and the lack of sunspots on the sun. And there's something called the Maunder Minimum. It happened in the 1645, I believe it was. And it's funny, you're like snapping on all the science that you've researched, but this has been at least 10 years. So I'm like having to go back trying to think. But yeah, it was the Maunder Minimum. And so that was the Surrender the Sun series. And
which means the Maunder Minimum means low sunspot activity and a global cooling.
A global cooling. And then I didn't involve this, but it is a true phenomena that it's global cooling, but it is also the increase in volcanic activity. So, there's always room for more there. And then, then I did Dawn of Deception was kind of strange because it was based on, I was originally commissioned to do a series based on Stephen Conkley's world for Kindle Worlds, if you remember what that used to be.
You bet.
Yeah. You bet. So I did a novella for that, and then they decided that they were going to abolish Kindle Worlds, and they gave us all the rights back to our novels. And then I thought, this is a great character. So what I would like to do is create it, to expound on it, and create it, Sloan Delaney, create it into a whole series. And so I did that, and I'm kind of happy with it because the catalyst there was really Stephen Conkley's Perseid collapse. So there were a lot of things that happened, including a tsunami. And then it just kind of ended up just destroying society, the infrastructure. And it took a long time for people to get over things. It was never really clear what happened. And I do think that is also a possibility. Like, you have an asteroid strike, communication's gone. You have several different things happen at one time, a tsunami or whatnot, and people are confused and they don't know. So I think that's highly plausible that nobody really knows what the heck happened because there's just no information. Everything's gone. So
that was my series, the same thing. It was actually into book 2 before they really understood what had happened. Right. And then it was in book 3 where they got the complete reveal of, hey, here's what happened back in book 1. And it's a 4-book series. So it's because that lack of communication, and this was some of the biggest pushback I got from readers. Mm-hmm. They wanted to know. It's like The Bachelor, but you want the last episode first.
Right.
And it doesn't work that way. You don't know. I was a career intelligence officer. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say that's reality. That's the way the story would happen. Everyone wanted to know. The characters wanted to know what happened, but that information realistically isn't there. So nope.
Yeah. But also feeding the fans. I fed them a few things right up front to say, here's something to think about. And that was what happened. But some of them were pretty put out about what the hell happened. Yeah, that's a great question. That's what you're supposed to ask. We have a question from Elaine Bateman. How has the current apocalypse light affected sales?
How has the current apocalypse light affected sales? I'm not sure what apocalypse light means.
COVID-19.
Okay,
so
I see.
The apocalypse where they make us sit home and watch TV and eat snacks or whatever you can get. Yeah, I mean.
It was very strange because initially whenever this happened, my very first book is titled, God, my hair, was titled, sorry, is titled The China Pandemic. So the first couple of months were bad. I mean, not bad. Sales were great, but boy, someone tried to buy my domain name, the China pandemic.
Oh, geez.
And I didn't want to sell it, mostly because I didn't know what they were going to do with it. And I felt, this is mine, you know? I didn't want people making money off of it, or doing something salacious. But sales have picked up. Readership across the board has picked up. I think there's been a new appreciation for post-apocalyptic, the genre itself. The fans are mixed. You know, I got to say, some of them are like, I can't read that right now. And that's totally understandable. Others just can't get enough. So it's, I don't know, there for a while, it was a little iffy here. Graham's resolution was based here, and it started here in Washington State. My son lives in Seattle, so very close to where everyone thought it first started here. So I was very concerned. I mean, it was scary. And then as events started happening here, I kept kind of watching the county borders to see if they were actually going to close those county borders and contain resources, because that happened in my novel. And I thought, okay, if that happens, something weird's happened, and we are actually in Graham's resolution. We just need to, I know where the bad guys are. Let's go find Graham. Let's just go to Graham's camp, because you know what to do now. So I don't know. It started to get a little surreal for me. But no, sales have picked up because readership across the board. I'm not sure if it's just because of Post Apoc or what exactly.
I think Post Apoc has picked up the Post Apoc because people get disappointed. Yeah, this is Post Apoc. This is apocalyptic, but there's no zombies. So you know, some people are disappointed that they don't get to go out in the streets and shoot zombies or hit them with bats wrapped in barbed wire. Yeah. But my sales, I pushed a little bit, but they did fine. But the China, owning that domain name, the China pandemic. Oh my God. Yeah, I'm sure that got you targeted by some stuff.
Oh,
I'm glad you didn't sell, because a lot of people consider that racist. That hey, China pandemic.
And I went, hey, look, I wrote this and published it in 2013, so you can just
people don't see dates. Yeah, they you opportunist, you.
Right? Oh yeah, that was just crazy.
Yeah.
I'm like,
or Stephen King.
COVID means virus from China.
Yeah, no, it actually means corona virus.
Like that. Originated.
Coronavirus ID 2019. Yeah, it's a coronavirus, and then it's a novel because it's a different one from the coronavirus family. But it's still something that is apocalypse light. I think Elaine hit it on the head because it has been. We have the entirety of the planet's smart people working on this one problem, and I have faith that we're going to come through it because we have the technology now. And the Spanish flu, how interesting. It's called the Spanish flu because only the Spanish papers reported it. It started in France as at the end of World War I. It started in France, but they locked down the media. Nobody was reporting on it. And the Spanish media were the first ones. And they said, hey, there's a problem here. So Spanish flu, it started in France.
Well, actually, there is some new evidence showing that virus may have originated from Kansas, the Spanish flu.
I can believe it.
Yeah.
I can believe it.
It's crazy. And then there's been some recent studies saying that one actually came from China. So I don't know that we'll ever know.
No. Who is patient zero? And that's, the HIV and the AIDS epidemic, trying to find that patient zero. Right. And I think they came to the conclusion it was a flight attendant, and this is why it spread so far. And it was out of control before they said, hey, we have a problem.
You're talking about for a flight attendant for the COVID?
Who had AIDS.
Oh, golly. Okay.
So back in the 70s is when that started, when it became commonly known. Yeah. And they were and they had a hellacious time because by the time they finally identified what they figured was patient zero, he was already dead.
Oh gosh. Yeah. I have faith because of polio, about, how we nailed that down, smallpox. I mean, I have faith that we're gonna at least get it under control to a certain degree.
So I see Emily Mandel St. John finally published a new book. Her first book, Station 11, a good post-apocalyptic look, and especially she took music and theater, and they trooped around for food, and they pretty much toured, and it was a number of tendrils with a good irony at the end. So very well written. But she took 5 years to write the next book. The next book is not post-apoc. It came out, and I don't think it launched out of the gate like her first book did. So I don't think she's realized, because she fell off the charts in a damn hurry with her second book. Because if you go back and look at Earth Abides, I just recently read that. And Earth Abides, it's another post-apocalyptic where they degenerate farther and farther, and all of a sudden they move from a scavenger to a self-sufficient, but now they've made bow and arrows as opposed to scavenging and having guns and then shepherding their ammunition and setting traps. And then it's like the only thing we got left are bows and arrows that we can make ourselves, and then start rebuilding society.
I think I was going to say, I think it would take quite a while for that to happen in the United States. Some other countries, perhaps, but we have a lot of ammo here.
As long as it's well stored, and I've got a lot of sealed stuff myself. Of course, I looked at it. Nobody come to my house, because you know where it is now.
Thank you, Patrick.
Let's see, what do we got? Do we have any more? Okay, hang on here. And this is a good question. Do you find you have more male readers or female readers? And does that depend on the subgenre?
I have, it's weird. Like, I have a lot more male readers than I do female readers. And honestly, I mean, I write under the name A.R. Shaw, and I get at least a letter or two every day saying that the pronoun they use is he, and they don't realize I'm a woman. And that's totally fine with me. It doesn't matter to me. And then I'll get a letter occasionally saying that they never would have read my book had they known I was a woman, and they didn't see it until they saw my picture in the back.
They already read it.
Yeah. So I think it's top heavy male slightly, though. I think it's maybe 60-40. But usually the older group, our group and older now.
Yeah, it's an older generation, because mine on survivalist, like making vinegar and doing things like that as part of survival. It's it appeals more to it. My dad loved it. My dad was over the moon on the book. He's 83, and he still gives copies to all his friends. He sets copies. He does taxes. He's 83. He still works full time at H&R Block from January 1st through April 15th doing taxes. And he has a stack of them on his desk, and he gives them out to clients because sometimes he's churning numbers and they just sit there and watch. So they take the book. And so my dad is one of my best advertisers, which, talking advertisers, you've done a few post-apoc shows, like a convention for survivalists and stuff like that.
I've gone to a couple of those. I've done the one in Salt Lake City. Boyd Craven was with me. I met Nicole Appelian, and we've become buddies. She is an author now, but she was on the History Channel's Alone show. And Alan Kay, I've met him. He's a friend. American, Chris Weatherman. He's okay, this is a funny story. So we're sitting there on a panel discussion at the Salt Lake City survival show, and we all have our mics on the table. And I've known Chris for years, American, and quite literally, he's sitting there. He's very he's either on or off. I don't know how else to describe him. He's a great guy. But he was like braiding the sound cords I looked over at him, and he's like braiding the sound cords together as we're sitting there trying to think of questions or answers to questions that are being asked of us. And finally, I'm like, I need this. And he's like, oh, he's got to unbraid the thing really quick. And everyone was laughing. It's like, can you not do that right now? You know?
Yeah. Well, and this is something because Angery, Angery, American, he lives that lifestyle. He'll disappear off the grid for a month at a time. So this is and his fiction. is part of that. Boyd Craven will also go off the grid for certain amounts of time, and I don't think Franklin Horton does, but he still understands it and spends a fair amount of time away.
He spends a lot of time on the Appalachian Trail. He's a fantastic writer. Franklin Horton is one of my favorites. He really is.
And so, speaking from that position of personal knowledge, I think is really important for post-apoc survivalist authors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. He's who else was I thinking of? Oh, darn, I'm sorry. I lost it. I was going to say, oh, well, he does, like I said, he does the Appalachian Trail. I've called and talked to him a couple of times for just resources on things. I've done Spartan races. Has anyone, see, I'm former military and did, you know, yeah, I've done races. You know, I researched the heck out of things. I think that's where I probably shine a little bit more. I live in Washington. I'm a hiker and do all kinds of things that way. I love to travel. I went to research Surrender the Sun. I actually, about 3 years ago, you'll remember this. No, it's been about 4 years ago now. We had a horrendous winter. It was 2016. The winter of 2016 was horrible here. I lived in Idaho at the time, Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. And I drove from Coeur d'Alene, Idaho to research a underground bunker in near Denver for Surrender the Sun in February. And I tried did it by myself, and it took me 2 days to get there and 2 days to get back, but that was one epic trip. It was not advisable at all. Because I really wanted to see how bad it could be, you know. So yeah, I will take off and do these trips and, you know, try to get more into your story. And it's like invaluable information. So I always do that.
The human condition is pretty significant as far as a topic. And that's why I embrace the broken people for my End Times Alaska series, because it's like, what if I had to do this myself? I'm going to have significant challenges that have nothing to do with finding a moose to shoot. It's going to have something to do with, can I get up in the morning, and then why? Why would you get up in the morning? And these are the things that I think post-apoc writers do it very, very well, is the internal motivation.
Yeah. One of the, you touched on it a minute ago, but like the lack of medication. We have a lot of people who are on, you know, psychotic medication. And that was one of the scenarios that were antipsychotic. That was one of the things that happened here. The lack of prescription drugs, or not being able to get them because the deliveries had actually started to happen here. And that's a scenario in one of my novels. And it could be a brutal situation. That's an entirely other thing for survivors to deal with. You know,
so you do have zombies. Nomad zombies.
You know, yeah.
We have a couple questions. Are you having any problems with advertising?
Me? No. Not really. I kind of do things a little differently than my author friends. I have my own ebook store. And, you know, people can go there and purchase things from me. And BookBub seems to like my stuff. So I seem to be doing fine with advertising.
And what's your category on for a BookBub featured deal?
I go with science fiction, but sometimes they'll put me in different slots. Sometimes it's action adventure. It's, you know, yeah.
Okay. That's good to know, because science fiction is such a broad category. I've seen some books in there, but also keep in mind, for everybody out there listening, for science fiction, it's such a huge category as a whole. And you're competing with Heinlein is getting spots. Frank Herbert is getting spots. Andre Norton is getting so all of these other these old school authors are locking down those spots. So when you don't get one for the month, because I put in for one and they gave me an international, I'm like, okay, I'll take it. I mean, I get like a 3-to-1, 4-to-1 ROI off an international, perfectly cool. But the day I didn't get it, it was Frank Herbert's Dune. Was on sale for 99 cents. Like, yeah, no, I cannot compete with that, because that's going to get a bazillion downloads.
Oh yeah, love Dune. Yeah, hated the movie.
So we have another. We have another. I look forward to it. I follow Frank Herbert, and I'm friends with Kevin J. Anderson, and I really look forward to the movie coming out this year. I've watched each one. Yeah, I've liked the first one, 1984 version with Kyle MacLachlan.
Sorry.
Oh, it was awesome. It was awesome. You obviously have no taste. From John Evans, do Post Apoc readers expect a downbeat conclusion to the series, or do they want the characters to be seen set up some kind of working society by the end of the series?
I don't know how everyone else does it. I kind of go after the humanity of. My talent, I think, lies in dealing with the humanity of things. So say that again. So do they want to see a conclusion at the end? I don't always do that. Most of my books are 3-book series. Graham's Resolution is a 5-book series currently, but I will constantly write that series. And sure, occasionally I will get somebody who hates the fact that they think it's a cliffhanger. But you know what? They hate it and then they love it at the same time because they want to stay in that world. They're just irritated that you can't give them more at that moment. It'll cause you to get some bad reviews occasionally, but I think it keeps your readers reading. So no, I don't think that's an issue. I think you just keep them reading. They don't need to get everything that they want out of it.
There you go. And in mine, I do end all my Post Apoc series setting up a new society. Although one, it continually collapsed. End Days, a different series, it collapsed society down to nothing, and the survivors, the very, very small group of survivors, were thrust into a prehistoric type world because it was time. Dilution, time element. So yeah, that one series, it's like, hey, you got these 20, 40 people who get to rebuild society now, but there's some significant challenge because now there's dinosaurs. So that's how we left it. We ended the series like that. So the readers are like, oh no, what great, tell us about this new society that they're setting up. So a lot of Post Apoc readers are indeed looking for that kind of closure on a series, which it's hey, here's how society would reform, and Earth Abides kind of ends that way, but with the wide open question of, hey, we're ready to start over. And the one big problem I had with Earth Abides was no dead bodies, because they go into the city and there weren't, like, you'd find them in their homes dead, you'd find them in their cars, the hospitals were overflowing, none of that. So I think that was one of the things that it just. I did not make that mistake in my book. I got dead bodies everywhere.
They're all over the place.
So we have a question. Do you think that Post Apoc and science fiction can be blended?
Well, I think you did that, right? Science fiction.
I did the hell out of that, and it works great.
Sure. I think there's a lot of techno stuff in mine as well, technology or military science that I read a lot of journals. So there's definitely they're quite often blended. Yeah.
Well, you look at and I talked with Todd McCaffrey. Anne McCaffrey, Dragon Riders of Pern, is a post-apocalyptic series.
Okay.
It has dragons, so she gets always thrown into the fantasy, but she said herself, I only write science fiction. So the dragons were genetically engineered based on a starship that colonized the planet, and the people lost touch with society because of this other, like, world-ending type event that they survived. But then they forgot over the millennia that they had come from space. So this is so that is and people like that, you're insane. It's fantasy. It has dragons. Yeah, first book it looks like that, but the second book you start learning, and by the third book you're like, holy shit, this is post-apocalyptic.
Yeah.
Oh, we swear on this show. So disclaimer, don't be broadcasting wide to your
We're both former military.
4-year-old.
It's gonna happen.
It might happen. What tropes have you tried to avoid in your post-apoc stories?
Oh, tropes. Okay, so often in a series you've got the classic guy who knew the collapse was going to happen. He's prepared. He's A-American. He knows how to do it all. And I have avoided that. That I've totally avoided. I think because I really want it to be realistic. There's no dragons in mine. That's just never going to happen. To me, I just really focus on like this. This could have been really bad. I mean, what we're dealing with right now, this could have been right out of, one of the novels. So that is something I purposely try to avoid. Just that classic character that knew it was going to happen, and he even knows karate, and he knows it all. So yeah, no.
Do you have a dog or a cat?
I have 2 cats. So if you're hearing running around, it's my cat.
The door behind you is closing.
Yeah, it's my cat.
Okay. I wanted to make sure it wasn't guests or an intruder, since you stated up front, I live alone, and now your door is closing magically behind you. I'm like, holy crap! Oh my God, she's going to kill somebody on TV.
That is Hazel. Sorry.
Pulls out her .45 and starts blasting away.
That would be a Glock 19, but yeah.
That would be a Glock, which doesn't have a safety. All you have to do is pull the trigger.
It has a safety, but okay.
And a technical issue, that's one thing. Survivalists, people who read Post Apoc fiction, are usually like Larry Correa types in that they know their weapons.
Yeah, so I know that weapon.
But you can't get that wrong.
Oh, no, you can't get that wrong. And I've been guilty of a couple of messes up, screw ups. And then, but they will call you on it. But I will go to the gun range and I will rent other weapons. I will talk to the guys there. My dad was a weapons specialist in Korea and Vietnam. So he is my resource for most everything.
Your tech expert, that's great.
But yeah.
I have, for mine, I use one of the weapons I have. I have a 45-70.
Okay.
And it's a Winchester Remington. I forget. It's whatever the name brand is. And yes, I forget. Oh my God, people are already, their heads are exploding in the survivalist world. How can you forget the name of your, the make of your weapon? It's an 18-inch short barrel, and it's a 4+1. And it's, when I got it, that's what it is. So I put that in my book, a 4+1, and fucking people went insane. They're like, no, it's a 5+1. Why? You're a Marine. Why would you underload your weapon? I'm like, it's a 4+1. I can't put the 5th round in there. I jack it in and I put the 4th round. And it's people. You know what the right answer would have been? Change it in the book to a 5+1 and fire the 5 rounds, because the arguments weren't worth it. And you know what? I couldn't find a goddamn version. It was only that 1 year they made it. I couldn't find a version online that was a 4+1. So if you search, Google is your worst reviewer's friend, and they're like, oh, it has to be a 5+1. It's not.
In the details, it's just
it's fucking not.
They're right, but they're it's like okay. Yeah.
And they're very vocal.
But
But something like that as a double check is never hurts, and don't be afraid to go back, even if you're right. Make the readers right. If they're expecting a 5+, give them the 5+1. Okay, easy to do. And I tried arguing with them, and not in my reviews, but on my Facebook ads and some shit like that. Yeah. And they're like, this is ridiculous. Why would you not load it fully? I'm like, it is. I always keep it loaded fully. You're just not going to win, because and sometimes you have to say, you're wrong. This is what it is. Go away.
Yeah.
Let's see. What do we got we've got more questions. The Postman with
loved it,
with Kevin Costner. You can ignore a lot of the stupid shit from that movie, but still something like that. And this is one thing in the Marine Corps. I was always a staff officer. I was enlisted first, and then I became a staff officer. And we always used to say, amateurs talk tactics, professionals talk logistics. So as long as you have the logistics support, you can pretty much accomplish whatever magnificent movements and plan you want. Mm-hmm. And this is when COVID-19 first happened and the world started shutting down. My first statement was, when you see the trucks stop rolling and the trains stop rolling, then we're going to have a serious problem. But they're shut down, and they're like, oh my God, the world's ending. It's like, no, the trucks are still going. Right. The warehouses are still getting filled. The manufacturing facilities, some of them shut down. So you can't get as much meat as you want. Oh well, but there's still enough.
Yeah.
And if you had a clue, you would have had it already in, like, I have a year's worth of toilet paper on hand at all times anyway. So since this started, I still haven't bought toilet paper, and I think I'm good till 2021, just because it's goodness. Let's see. What do we? Any more questions? We don't have any more right now, but there's always, this is Post Apoc. There's always so much fun stuff to think about. What is your favorite character?
Maybe a Henry. This is Hazel, and then Henry's more calm. A lot of people know my cats. So there's Henry and Hazel. Okay. And Henry is 14. They're both rescues, and he's in the other room, and Hazel's only 2. So she's the one running around and being silly. But anyway. Yeah.
Okay. What is your favorite character in a type of character in a Post Apoc setting?
Okay. So I was asked to write strong female characters, and I think I've done that a couple of times. But I always try to be realistic, right? I'm a woman. I know what we're capable of and what we are not capable of. And we're pretty dang strong. And several of my characters are very tough women. They can handle it. I wrote this in Surrender the Sun. I wrote this one woman who, her name is Maeve, but she's a typical woman. She goes to the grocery store for dinner every day. She doesn't prepare for anything. She's a bookstore owner. And I've been annihilated for her being such a wussy female character. No, she's typical. This is life. She's a typical character. So I think I guess my favorite character is still that strong male guy who saves the world despite his own inadequacies or whatever. But it's the people who step up. And I think this is very true. And I've even seen it in society around me. I'm a great observer. We all either have that survivalist gene or we do not. And you'll see people react to certain situations in any scenario in life, stepping in front of a car to save a child, or jumping back and like, you know what, that's sad that kid was just mowed over, but it's those people, ordinary citizens, that jump in and do something extraordinary. Those are the characters. Graham was just, he's just an ordinary guy, but he stepped up and really faced some tragedies. He could have killed himself. He had every right to do that. And just, you know what, different show, different time, but he didn't. So so I think my favorite type of character is the one that they even surprise themselves by their own bravery, by their own stamina to continue to go on, to achieve the next thing, to save the next person. Yeah. True hero.
Those are great points. And I think that was one of John Truby's main points in his book, Anatomy of Story. And I've talked with him a few times. I've had the fortune of being able to talk to him a few times. We've had him on the show. And the flawed character, that is a trope that works. It works as part of your plot and your story, because it gives people something to relate to. Because you could look at Superman. Oh my God, here's impervious to everything except kryptonite. So they had to introduce something because otherwise he would just make everything right and nobody could do anything about it. So that's even my science fiction, all of my stories, I have to have that. I have to have the character that has vulnerabilities, that has shortcomings. And they're not debilitating shortcomings, though, where an attack happens and you're trying to defend your house and you just curl up in a ball and start crying. Right. And then something magically happens and the attack wanes and then you get back up and it's like, okay, let's go back to work. Bullshit. Your readers are going to stop reading at that point. Yeah. They have to fight back. They have to fight for something.
They don't even know themselves. They don't even know that they contain this gene, this, and I think that's really important. Because I think
that's a good hook for Post Apoc stories.
Yeah, ordinary citizens who become extraordinary. Yeah.
Okay, here you go. How do you decide how horrible you want to be?
How do you decide how horrible to be to your characters? I'm thinking of Stephen King's, most famous, I don't know, it's not his most famous thing, but if you read Stephen King on writing, he says you chase your character up a tree and then you throw stones at him and you set the tree on fire. And, So how do I decide how horrible? So there's always some limits. There's some really tragic situations for people, and you're never supposed to. You can imply a rape, okay, but you're never supposed to actually put your reader through that.
Right.
So that's something I try to steer clear from. I think I've done a good job of, but would those things happen? Oh my God, yeah, it would happen in this situation, right? There is a bizarre, what is it called? It's a biological imperative that if you feel like you're in danger, this is a known fact that, there's the rape and pillage thing. It's pretty bad. It's brutal, but that's actually a human there's a term for it. Hazel, settle down.
Who's a good kitty?
So I think that it's so yeah, I'm pretty bad to characters, but I think that as I study a lot of history, and I look, and we are a pretty ruthless bunch, humans. If you looked at the animal kingdom, it can get pretty bad, but I don't typically do massive child abuse or anything like that. I can't. The other thing I don't do is I have this character that's beloved in Graham's Resolution. It's a dog. Sheriff, the dog, is a police dog, and he's become my fans started a Facebook page for this guy. I can't kill him. I want to, but that's the other thing that's very difficult is how do you manage that? He's 12 years old now. I had to do the math, and I'm thinking, yeah, German Shepherds don't live that long, especially police dogs.
Time's getting short. Yeah. The how horrible.
But I have some rules as well.
It's really tough, and I never have any rapes in my books. I can't abide by them.
Yeah.
And
it's rough.
It's kind of a element of reality. I write escape fiction, so I'm okay not inserting so much reality that people devolve into that mindset completely.
I don't want to
start eating their own fingers. I mean,
yeah. I try to tell the story. I know that if I see that it's coming to a certain, there's some pretty horrific things that happened in Dawn of Deception, and I did. It's like you can disembowel someone, but you can't like rape someone. But I do still go away. I do still I bring it up to a certain point, and then I let the readers. It's the same. I don't do sexual scenes. Sorry.
Yeah.
But I do bring it to a certain point and leave it to my reader's imagination. I think I've been able to do that well. I know.
And that's a great way to approach it. If you personally, especially as an author, don't be. I tell everybody, don't write something you really don't like to write, because then it's too much like a job, and you don't write to have a job. I mean, it's great.
Yeah.
It can generate revenue.
Yeah.
But the keeping that real and keeping it still entertaining, which is what I see us, especially fiction authors, as entertainers. And I put in what I need to keep the story moving forward. I use open loops, so I'll end a scene with something an unknown and then go to the next scene. Because one of the things that if you can keep the person from putting the book down, then they don't have to worry about, do I pick it back up? Right. So if you give them a reason to stop reading, they're going to stop, and then they're probably never going to come back, because in this era, they've got their Kindle completely loaded. So you don't want it. So you keep it flowing. An open loop is not a cliffhanger. It's, the guy hasn't just died.
Right. What happens next? That's what.
Oh, and then they CPR and bring him back to life. Well, shit, that's a cliffhanger, and it's crushing. But it's like, the one person looks to the other and says, I think his heart stopped. And then you go to the next scene. You didn't kill him, but you left that hook. Yes. And it's in the book. I mean, ending a book with that could be problematic to keeping your readers on board. So let's say we have another question, and this is a question to you as a female author.
Okay. Do you find the survivalist male mindset lends itself to some misogyny with your strong females in Post Apoc? I'm not a super feminist. I think I'm just a a traditionalist. I'm realistic. So I would say, I want to say it depends. Yes and no. There have been some things that I've read and I thought, oh man, that burns. Because I'm a feminine female. However, I was also served in the armed forces. I'm a strong woman. So I do have some problem. It depends on the author and but we all have our fans, our specific fans. So I think that there is probably a market for each of these. For example, in the romance genre, which I can't write, but like Amish romances is a thing, like Amish romances, right?
Yep.
Some people really love that, but it would drive me nuts to read something like that because of the way that they live and how males treat them certain ways. I would have a hard time with that. So
yeah, I know Kyla Stone does very, very well in Post Apoc, and it's kind of survivalist, kind of takeover. It's good stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she does a great job.
And a good question, first person or third person? For me personally, my one series, End Times Alaska, is first person, so 4 books. My other 20 books in Post Apoc are all third person Omni.
Right. I do third person. You can do more. You can just do more with them. I tend to focus on the point of view of different characters in different chapters. I would like to do one that's first person, but I just haven't taken the time to really focus on that. I've got an idea for that though. Yeah. You really kind of have to think ahead with first person, and
yeah,
you kind of really have to have a plan. And I don't write that way. I'm an organic writer. I sit down, stuff comes to me. That's the way it works for me. You can even combine the two with your like main protagonist every chapter with that character having it in first person and the rest of them being third person. James Patterson seems to do that often, but I haven't done it.
I did that a little bit in my first book where I had a first person, and the 4 books are mostly first person, but I did have some third person scenes because I had to have 2 different scenes because my main character, Chuck, which is and that moved on a different tendril. They got lost in the wilderness. What are the people doing to find them? Well, you had to go to third person. So it kind of, it worked. I mean, that series sold really well, but I would, third person Omni gives you such a broader perspective. You can change the camera lens to focus on whatever you want. And we touch in that on that with Larry Martin, L.J. Martin, in my Write Compelling Fiction book. So he talks about that very succinctly in what you can do. And there are times when you want the right perspective. Sometimes it is first person, but understand it's all going to be through this person's eyes.
Yes.
So don't see any new questions, but in the post-apoc genre, have you written anything not post-apoc?
I did. And I do that with a somewhat of an eye roll. I early on, I wrote a standalone novel. It's titled The French Wardrobe. Had I known what I know now, and it was a mystery set in Seattle. It's kind of a mystery. It is still somewhat survival though. So it's basically about a woman a widow, who finds out that her husband's death wasn't an accident. And he was a lawyer, and I shouldn't give the whole thing away. It was one of those learning experiences. If I ever have time, I will go back and make an addition to and change some things because of what I now know as an author. I still think it's a good story, but yeah, so I did do one mystery, and then mostly my fans said, yeah, that post-apoc stuff you do, go back and do that. That's your thing. Yeah. So they sort of kicked me out.
Yep.
Yeah, it's true. She was still survival. She was, I've gotten a lot of great notes when they coming back to me and saying she still had to like change her world and survive this horrible tragedy. And I just seem to be stuck on that. I mean, I'm always writing about someone surviving something. There's something wrong.
So we'll call it a passion project. That one is. Yeah. But post-apoc is where you make your money.
Yes, I do.
So what question did I ask you today that you were expecting?
Oh, I don't know. You've asked a ton of questions. That's really. What are you doing next? Am I going to be at 50 books maybe in November? Is it still on?
Yes. I think you signed up. We're having 20 books. It'll be there.
Right. Yeah.
Boyd Craven and Franklin Horton will both be there as well. And Kyla Stone she's running the Post Apoc panel. I told her you were coming, so hopefully she'll reach out and say, hey, because the moderators get to pick the people on their panel. So hopefully she'll pick you. Hugh Howey is coming from so Wool. I would expect that he'll be on that panel as well.
Cool. Very, very cool. Yeah. No, I plan to be there if we're still open and running. Yeah.
We should be. Actually, I think Vegas is opening next week after, with some places opening. Samstown is going to be one of the first to reopen because they're a self-contained unit and also off the strip. So the whole of the city can do a little testing in these islands of
good idea
gambling and see how it works.
I'm thinking second wave in the fall, just in my mind, that's what I'm thinking. But I hope that we'll be good and we can, we'll see each other then. But I've met you before. I was there a couple years ago.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Indeed. And how about that?
Yeah.
Any thoughts on trends? What do you see going forward with Post Apoc?
I think this has been a great experience. It's a terrible thing to say, but I do think that
how horrible are you to yourself and your fans? I mean, your characters.
Yeah, I'm warped, right? I think it's been an experience for people, and I think that they've now kind of locked on to it. It's made them think, right? This could have been a lot worse. And now I think that people who have discovered the genre, I think that they are reading a lot more about it. So what do I see happening? And then apparently we have aliens now. Did you hear about this? Aliens?
No.
Yeah. No, you didn't hear about this? So I don't know. We'll see what happens.
All right, good. We got that going for us.
I won't be right about that, but yeah.
So many UFO videos coming out of the Navy that they've finally unclassified all this stuff and said, hey, we got no clue. Here you go. You guys take a look and have at it and have fun.
I think it's Elon Musk, personally.
I looked at those and I'm like, holy shit, because I was an air intel officer in one of my sordid jobs. And so got to look at a lot of gun camera video and stuff. And I'm like, I got no clue. And I can tell you the pilots with their conversation, they had no clue. And they're like, this shouldn't happen. Nobody can fly like this.
Right.
Because, I mean, going from warp 3 to stopping, turning, and then going warp 2, and it's like no airplane can do that. So really weird.
Yeah.
So somebody wants to know, and we'll make this the last question. What are your I copied the wrong one in. Here you go. What are your daily writing habits?
Okay. I try to, it's tough. So yeah, I sit at my desk and I let things come to me. And I do something that Neil Gaiman does. I don't allow myself, I have rules. I don't allow myself to do anything fun. I just, you may not search the internet. You can sit here and look out the window. And I have a beautiful view. You can sit here and look out the window, or you can write, and that is it. But this is what you're doing from this time to this time. Because the business side of this is overwhelming. So you have to give yourself a slot of the day to get some writing done. And sometimes you're just not ready to write during that time, but I don't allow myself to do anything else either. So there's that. That's kind of the discipline I'm trying to instill at the moment.
That is great. And that's what it takes. You can't sell a book you haven't written.
Exactly. Yeah.
So you need to provide the product. So then when you put your business hat on, even if you hate the business side of it, it's still a necessary element of being a self-published author.
It really is.
You do enough of that. So how much time do you spend on marketing each day?
Oh gosh. Just a tremendous amount of time. But a lot of authors are like looking at me to see what I'm doing right now. And I always kind of explain it this way. I'm like, I'm on a plane and you're next to me and it's crashing and I'm putting my mask on. And when I get it done, I will help you. That's kind of when I get my oxygen mask on, then I will help you. It's been a lot of work. I've done some new things. I'll just say, I took on the AMMO program. I don't know if anyone knows what that is. Not trying to sell it, but that's something I engaged in, and it was huge. It changed the way I do things. I also ended up doing a slightly different from that, but Steve Piper is the guy for that. If you're interested, go to him, Steve Piper at AMMO. It really changed the way that I market and do things. Like I said, I pulled out of Kindle Unlimited completely across the board, and I sell my own. I have basically my own. I'm not only a publisher, I'm a bookstore owner, and I'm an author. And it's a tremendous amount of work. So I could spend all day, every day, just doing the business side of this.
The direct sales element.
Yeah. But I do carve out my writing time, and this is when we do this. And if we don't, you can look out the window, but you can't do anything else.
There you go. And that's something we should have explored more of, being a wide Post Apoc author. I know a lot of Post Apoc authors are KU. I'm KU, almost all in. I mean, I make so much goddamn money off KU that it's hard to shut that off and try to explore this new wide market. Direct sales are cool. And Joe Solari has a book on how to do direct sales.
Yeah, I keep my fans. Amazon doesn't own them. I do.
Yeah.
So that was enormous to me. That was a big deal.
That is a huge, huge element. And from a marketing perspective, this is one thing. Everybody else, you're going through somebody else. Somebody else is consolidating and keeping your fans, and then showing. This is what Amazon will do. If you're successful, they're going to show other people to your stuff. And as well as when they get there, they're going to have other options besides your stuff. Exactly. So this is what, when you're using somebody else's platform, if you go to A.R. Shaw's platform, guess what she's showing you? Her stuff. Yes. And that's it. There's no different elements to go get something else.
I can share Tom Abrams is a fantastic author. And I'll share his work because he's a similar writer. His style is similar to mine. And if I'm writing the next book, I will take his work and say, hey, while I'm writing this, you might enjoy this if you've finished all of my series. And I'll do that occasionally. That's been huge. We do that for each other occasionally when we think it's a good fit, yeah. So I'm able to introduce others if I want to. Yeah.
I would always recommend that. Look for somebody to help out. Yes. Assuming that their books are of a type and quality that your readers would appreciate. And this is giving blind shout outs is a challenge, because it can cost you your readers. Because if you recommend a book that isn't good and that isn't in a style, they're used to all first person, and then somebody recommends your books and they're third person. It's like, hey, what the hell is this? Now, this is, you take care of your readers. Never do your reader a disservice if you can avoid it.
Take care of your readers. Definitely. That's a huge rule. Yeah. You want to make sure that you're not sending them off to a mystery writer or something. You want to give them something of quality that that is something that they would enjoy, and they'll respect you more for it. Yes.
And there we go. It's been an hour. I really appreciate Annette coming on the show today and talking to us about Post Apoc and sharing her ideas and her approach to this business and how to get in and make some money on this, because your words have value. And we always talk about it takes a quality story that you can then, because anybody can sell a book, the first book. Anybody. I mean, you got to do a lot of marketing and stuff like that. But if the story's not good, you cannot sell that second book, because nobody's going to read it because they read the first book and they didn't like it. So it always starts with a quality story, the very best book you can put out as quickly as you can put out. Because Annette could take a year off and say, hey, I'm going to take a year off and not write any books. But then guess what? Her income is going to taper down and down. Her effort to sell it is going to go up and up. And all of a sudden, hey, just to maintain status quo, I have no time to write because I have to work on marketing all the time. Keep the production line going. So you got to get words. And even if you're doing a lot of marketing, still carve out that time and get your words as part of your business, because not only are you the CFO of marketing, you are the production design team. So
yes. Yeah.
As a final, any final words, Annette?
Go to thechinapandemic.com if you want to see my setup. If you see that, then you'll understand. But that's
great. And a great sample there. Do not offer to buy it and then pimp masks, N95 masks with Pikachu on them, because then everybody will hate you. So thank you very much. The next show, I don't have anything lined up for Thursday or Friday. I'll ask Michael if he wants to do a show one of those days. We'll post on the group if we get one. And otherwise, Michael and I will be back on Saturday to talk about something, definitely not our butts, because Michael always refuses to talk about his butt. So we'll talk about something else. All right, you guys have a great one. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Annette. A.R. Shaw. You can find her books on distinguished bookstores around the world. However, go to the ChinaPandemic.com and you'll see it right there and be able to buy it directly. And Bob's your uncle. We always love ending on Bob. Thank you, everybody.